Hey everyone, welcome back to Jays Central, your home for everything Toronto Blue Jays. Before we jump into today's breaking story, I need you to do me a huge favor. Smash that like button right now. It literally takes 1 second, and it helps this channel more than you can imagine. We're building something special here, and every single like pushes our content to more Blue Jays fans who need to see this information. So go ahead, hit that like button, and let's get into what could be a franchise-altering move happening right under our noses. We're in the middle of a fascinating offseason situation that nobody's really talking about enough. While everyone's been focused on the big names that got away, and yeah, we'll touch on that, there's a quieter story developing that could completely reshape how this team looks when spring training starts. The front office has been busy, really busy, and the consequences of all their moves are starting to create some serious roster decisions that need to be made sooner rather than later. This isn't speculation or hot take material. This is looking at the actual numbers, the actual roster construction, and following the logical path of where things are headed. Let me paint the picture for you. Coming into this offseason, everyone expected Toronto to make a massive splash in free agency. The names floating around were electric. Bo Bichette was potentially available. Kyle Tucker was generating buzz. Cody Bellinger's name kept popping up in trade discussions. These are legitimate superstar-level position players who could transform an offense overnight. Fans were dreaming about what this lineup could look like with one or two of those guys anchoring the middle of the order. The excitement was real, the possibilities seemed endless, and then reality happened. Toronto struck out on all three. They didn't land any of those big bats that everyone was anticipating. Now, before you leave an angry comment, and hey, drop a comment below telling me how you really feel about the offseason so far. Let me say this, the front office didn't just sit on their hands. They pivoted, and they pivoted hard toward pitching. Dylan Cease came over in a move that raised a lot of eyebrows. That's a legitimate front-of-the-rotation arm when he's on his game. Then they added Cody Ponce, who's shown flashes of being a solid middle-rotation option. Tyler Rogers joined the bullpen mix, bringing experience and a unique delivery that gives hitters fits. These aren't headline-grabbing position players, but they're meaningful additions to a pitching staff that needed depth and quality. Here's where things get really interesting, and this is why you need to stick around for this entire video. With all these new arms coming into the organization, Toronto suddenly finds themselves with what we call in baseball a good problem to have. They've got too many starting pitchers. I know that sounds crazy after years of struggling to find reliable innings, but it's true. The rotation is legitimately crowded right now, and that crowd is about to force some really difficult decisions in the coming weeks. If you're enjoying this breakdown, hit that like button again. Yes, you can like a video twice in spirit, and make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. We're dropping content every single day breaking down every move, every rumor, every development surrounding this team. You don't want to miss what's coming. Let's talk about what the projected rotation looks like right now. You've got Kevin Gausman at the top, and he's earned that spot. The guy's been one of the most consistent starters in baseball over the past few years, giving you quality innings and keeping the team in games night after night. Then you've got Shane Bieber, who when healthy is one of the best pitchers in the entire league. His stuff is elite, his command is exceptional, and if he can stay on the field, he's a legitimate number 2 starter on any contending team. Trey Yesavage showed enough last season to earn consideration for a rotation spot. He's young, he's got upside, and the organization clearly believes in his development trajectory. Jose Berrios has been a mainstay in this rotation for years now. We'll talk more about his situation in a minute because it's complicated, but for now, he's penciled into that rotation. Dylan Cease, as we mentioned, is the new addition who brings swing-and-miss stuff and the ability to dominate when everything's clicking. And then you've got Cody Ponce, who could easily fit into that 5th or 6th starter role, depending on how the coaching staff wants to structure things. Some people are even talking about the possibility of a 6-man rotation to start the season, which would be a pretty significant departure from traditional roster construction, but might make sense given the depth of arms available. Drop a comment right now telling me, do you want to see Toronto run a 6-man rotation, or should they stick with the traditional 5-man and use the extra arms for depth and flexibility? I genuinely want to know what you think, so don't be shy. Leave that comment. But wait, there's more. That rotation we just laid out doesn't even include Eric Lauer, and that's where this entire story pivots into something that could happen very soon. Lauer is a fascinating player because he's shown he can contribute in multiple roles. He's a left-handed pitcher who split time between starting and relieving last year, and he was actually pretty effective in both roles. When you look at that projected rotation we just discussed, you'll notice something immediately. Every single one of those pitchers is right-handed. Not a single lefty in the bunch. That creates both an opportunity and a problem. On one hand, having Lauer gives you that left-handed look that can be incredibly valuable, especially against lineups heavy with left-handed hitters. On the other hand, where exactly does he fit when you've already got 6 legitimate starting pitchers ahead of him? This is the question keeping the front office up at night right now, and the answer might involve picking up the phone and exploring what other teams would be willing to give up to acquire his services. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, because if we're being completely honest about roster construction and potential trades, we need to address Jose Berrios. If you've been paying attention to this team over the past year, you know that his performance was disappointing, to put it mildly. We're talking about an ERA that climbed to 4.17, a WHIP sitting at 1.30, and only 138 strikeouts across 166 innings. Those aren't numbers that inspire confidence, especially from a guy who's supposed to be eating innings and providing stability in the middle of the rotation. Before we go any further, make sure you hit that like button if you haven't already. We're trying to reach 500 likes on this video, and we're counting on you to help us get there. Every like matters. Every comment matters. Every bit of engagement tells YouTube that this content is valuable and worth showing to more Blue Jays fans. So take that 1 second right now and smash that button. Now, back to Berrios. If the front office could wave a magic wand and move on from anyone in that rotation, it would probably be him. His performance hasn't justified his presence, and more importantly, he's got a contract that's becoming increasingly difficult to stomach. We're talking about $67 million owed over the next 3 years. That's a massive financial commitment to a pitcher who's trending in the wrong direction. No team in baseball is excited about taking on that kind of money for that kind of production, especially when you factor in the risk that he could continue declining rather than bouncing back. This is where the reality of baseball economics comes into play. Toronto would love to move Berrios and free up that payroll space for other needs. But finding a trade partner willing to absorb that contract is going to be nearly impossible without the Blue Jays eating a significant portion of the money or attaching prospects to sweeten the deal. Neither of those options is particularly appealing when you're trying to build a contender. So Berrios is likely staying put, at least for now, which brings us back to the other arms in the organization and who might actually be available. Eric Lauer represents the complete opposite scenario from Berrios, and this is why he's the name to watch over the next few weeks. Where Berrios is expensive and underperforming, Lauer is affordable and coming off one of his best professional seasons. Last year, he posted an ERA of 3.18, a WHIP of 1.10, and struck out 102 batters in just over 100 innings of work. Those are really solid numbers, especially when you consider the versatility he brings by being effective in multiple roles. Leave a comment below telling me your favorite Eric Lauer moment from last season. Did you prefer him as a starter or coming out of the bullpen? Let's get some interaction going here. Lauer appeared in 28 games last season, with 15 of those coming as a starting pitcher. That flexibility is exactly what contending teams are looking for, a guy who can slide into your rotation when needed, but also give you length out of the bullpen in a pinch. He's not going to be the ace of anybody's staff, but he's the kind of reliable, steady arm that championship teams need to have depth. And here's the kicker. He's going to make a fraction of what Berrios is earning next season. From a trade value perspective, that makes him infinitely more attractive to potential partners. The name that keeps coming up in these discussions is the Los Angeles Angels, and when you look at their situation, the fit makes a ton of sense. They're heading into the season with major question marks throughout their rotation. Grayson Rodriguez, who they just acquired, missed the entire previous season dealing with injury issues. Nobody knows what version of him they're going to get, or if he'll even be ready for opening day. Then you've got Alek Manoah, who's projected to be their 5th starter but only pitched in the minor leagues last season. Since the start of 2023, Manoah has thrown just 111 innings at the major league level. That's not exactly a guy you can count on for consistency or durability. The Angels need innings, they need reliability, and they need someone who can step into their rotation and contribute immediately, without a long ramp-up period or question marks about health. Eric Lauer checks every single one of those boxes. He's proven he can handle a starter's workload. He's shown he can be effective over a full season, and there's no injury history that would scare away potential suitors. For a team like Los Angeles that's trying to compete but has rotation uncertainty, Lauer could be exactly what they're looking for. Smash that like button if you think Lauer would thrive in a full-time starting role with another organization. And make sure you're subscribed because we're going to follow this story every single day until something happens. So what would Toronto get back in a potential deal? This is where expectations need to be managed a little bit. We're not talking about landing a top 50 prospect in baseball for Eric Lauer. He's a valuable piece, but he's not a cornerstone player that's going to bring back a massive haul. The most likely scenario involves getting a pitching prospect from the Angels farm system, someone with upside who can help stock Toronto's minor league depth and potentially contribute at the major league level down the road. Here's where the strategic thinking comes in, and this is the part that separates good front offices from great ones. Toronto's farm system right now is considered middle of the pack across baseball. They're not Baltimore with prospects bursting out of every level, but they're not barren either. Adding another quality pitching prospect would help boost that system and give them more options for the future. Every organization needs a pipeline of talent coming through, and trading Lauer for a prospect fits that model perfectly, especially if they genuinely believe they have enough starting pitching depth to withstand losing him. Before we continue, drop a comment telling me which Angels prospect you'd want to see come back in a Lauer trade. Do your homework, look at their system, and let me know who excites you. And if this video hits 600 likes, I'll do a full prospect breakdown video. Let's make it happen. There's another angle to consider here as well. If Toronto does move Lauer, they're not going to just leave a hole in their depth chart and call it a day. The smart play would be to replace him with another left-handed pitching option, and there's a name that's been circulating in rumors lately, Jojo Romeo from the St. Louis Cardinals organization. Romeo has been connected to the Blue Jays in recent reports, and while nothing's confirmed, it would make sense as a way to maintain that left-handed presence in the pitching staff while also getting younger and potentially more cost-controlled. The timing of a potential Lauer trade is important too, and this is something people aren't talking about enough. Right now, coming off a career year, his trade value is probably at its peak. He's 30 years old, which means he's entering the phase of his career where decline becomes more likely than improvement. If the front office believes he's maxed out his value, and this is as good as he's going to get, selling high makes a lot of sense. Waiting another year might mean his performance dips, his value drops, and suddenly you're trying to move a declining asset instead of a productive one. That's not a position any team wants to be in. Hit that like button right now if you trust the front office to make the right decision here. Your engagement literally determines whether this channel can continue bringing you daily Blue Jays content. So please, take 1 second and click that button. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture of what this move would mean for the organization's direction. Trading Lauer signals a few things. First, it shows confidence in the rotation depth they've already assembled. You don't trade a guy who posted a 3.18 ERA unless you genuinely believe you have enough arms to replace his production. Second, it indicates a willingness to prioritize long-term asset accumulation over short-term roster flexibility. Getting a prospect back instead of keeping a veteran for depth is a bet on the future, and it's the kind of bet that smart organizations make when they're building sustainable success. Third, and this might be the most important point, it shows that the front office isn't afraid to be creative and opportunistic. The easy move is to just keep everyone and run a 6-man rotation or pile up depth and hope nobody gets hurt. The harder move, the smarter move, is to recognize when you have surplus value at a position and convert that into something that addresses a need elsewhere in the organization. That's what championship-caliber front offices do. They maximize value at every turn. Now, let's be realistic about potential downsides, because no trade is perfect and there are always risks. What if the Blue Jays trade Lauer and then injuries decimate their rotation? What if Bieber's health issues resurface? What if Cease struggles to find consistency? Suddenly that depth they traded away doesn't look so expendable anymore. What if the prospect they get back never develops into a major league contributor? That's always the risk with prospects. They're projections, not guarantees. What if Lauer goes to another team and has 2 or 3 more excellent seasons, making Toronto look foolish for giving up on him too early? These are all legitimate concerns, and they're part of why these decisions are so difficult. But you can't let fear of what might go wrong prevent you from making moves that make sense based on the information you have right now. The Blue Jays have to trust their evaluation of their own roster, trust their scouting department's assessment of potential prospects coming back, and trust that they're making decisions that give them the best chance to compete both now and in the future. Drop a comment right now with your bold prediction. Will the Blue Jays trade Eric Lauer before spring training? And if so, to which team? I want to see your takes. And seriously, if you're still watching and you haven't liked this video yet, what are you doing? Hit that button. As we wrap this up, here's what you need to remember. The Toronto Blue Jays have created a situation where they have more starting pitching than they can realistically use. Eric Lauer is the most logical candidate to be moved because he has value, he's affordable, he's coming off a strong season, and he's easier to replace than some of the other arms in the organization. The Angels make sense as a trade partner because of their rotation needs and the potential prospect return they could offer. This move could happen soon, potentially within the next few weeks as teams finalize their rosters before spring training. Whether this is the right move depends on a lot of factors we won't know until after the fact. But it's a logical move, a defensible move, and potentially a smart move if executed properly. The front office has shown they're willing to be aggressive and make tough decisions. Now we'll see if they pull the trigger on this one. Thanks for watching Jays Central. If you made it this far, you're a real one, and I appreciate you. Make sure you're subscribed, make sure notifications are turned on, and make sure you've left a like on this video and a comment with your thoughts. We're building the best Blue Jays community on YouTube, and it only works if you're engaged and active. I'll see you in the next video where we'll continue breaking down every move, every rumor, and every development surrounding this team. Until then, stay passionate, stay informed, and let's go Blue Jays.